I'm Lookstar07. I am the GM of Dragon's Nest Thievery Company. Today we are going to talk about healers. The different classes and races and skills and stuff that you need for that. Today I'm going to be talking about the Templar healing, but I also have a couple of guests with me. So Cece, you're up first.
Hi, I'm Cece. I am the PvE lead and co-GM of Anthem, which is a raid guild specializing in training and progression. I'll be talking about Warden Healer today.
And Elk.
I'm Elk. I've been playing in various progression style vet trial groups for a period of quite a few months now. Swords are healing.
And that's a very neat class to do healing on.
It has its limitations. It has some unique pros and a few cons, but it's very capable. I can talk about the specifics of what it brings to the table and any weaknesses.
So I have a High Elf Templar. I didn't really start out as a healer. I think I had started out trying to do DPS just because that's what I'm most familiar with. And at some point I realized, healers are not entirely that common. Maybe I should switch it, and this is not a bad class to do it on. So I was probably in level somewhere in the 30s by the time I decided to become a healer. And I think that actually helped me level faster, because I already had, I had the survivability from doing all the DPS skills first, and those were already unlocked because, sometimes you do DPS even as a healer. So I feel like that was, even though I didn't plan it that way, it was probably a good way to go to not try to start life as a healer. Another tip as far as skills go is your quick cast ground abilities. Forgot to mention that earlier. You want to change that to on, because otherwise there's some skills that you cast. I know it's more important for like DPS with Endless Hail, you have to cast that twice, but I think healers have some skills like that as well, so I just have it turned on. Anyway, Cece, why don't you tell us about your warden?
Okay, so the main reason you want to bring wardens to trials is they bring some different synergies than Templar, namely with budding. Because that is important for Alkash, and especially now with Locestes being in the game, it's really important to have as many synergies available for your team as possible. Wardens also have a passive that grants minor toughness, which used to be on Warhorn, but was then taken away, so it gives an extra 10% health to your group, and keeping everybody alive is pretty important in making sure you're getting things done. For my typical bar setup on my restoration staff, I run Combat Prayer, Illustrious Springs, or Illustrious Healing, which is a more of a grand. I have a flex spot, which I typically put Ward Ally in, but you can use something like Inner Light, Deceptive Predator, Guard, anything like that. Energy Orb, which is from the Undaunted skill line. It's a huge heal over time. Gives resources back to your allies when they synergize it. And the Betting Etch, which grants you major sorcery, sustain, and slotting it gives you 12% extra magicka recovery due to the Animal Companions power. For my front bar, I typically run Northern Storm, but I may swap that out for Trees or the Restoration ulti. On my Destro bar, I run Budding Seeds, Wall of Elements, and then a flex spot for either Altar or Elemental Drain, depending on the group. Typically, I'll run Enchanted Growth in my 4 slot, but I have been running Guard in that slot on some boss fights. an Ice Fortress, which grants major ward and protection to everybody in your group, and then Warhorn is on my back bar.
What passive or skill is it that's causing major toughness or whatever?
It's in the green balance line.
Mm-hmm.
The maturation passive. It's the last one. Any heal that a warden does grants minor toughness. So your springs, your combat prayer, even just dropping altar, those are all really easy ways to keep up toughness on the group.
Okay. Like with gear, is there any like specific instances where you'd wear one gear over another?
It's going to be largely content and group dependent. So, for example, on this tune, right now I'm in IA Hercines. I would view IA and Olorime as the two base sets a healer should be able to pair with anything. You'll have one healer in IA and one in Olorime for every trial, and that's just not going to go. I'm in Hercines because the group I run Sunspire with on the weeknights is pretty stam heavy. If you've got a stam crow in a group, it's almost absolutely necessary because their sustain is so terrible. So Hercines reduces the cost of stamina abilities by 4% for your entire group. It's kind of the equivalent of which you might run somewhere like Asylum or Cloud Rest, where builds tend to be more Magicka heavy. But by and large, I would say the sets I typically run are Hercines, IA, Olo, Yorvolds, occasionally Mending if there are trash packs that require it, but I don't typically use it on boss fights.
Do you ever use SPC or Worm?
Or Worm. I used Worm in Cloud Rest as the kite healer. SPC is, quite frankly, irrelevant now due to Olorime just being stronger in every single possible. It doesn't require overhealing, and it can actually hit all 12 people versus SPC requiring overhealing and having a cap of 6, which would require both healers to be running.
Do you happen to use the same enchants on all of your gear, or would you change that up also?
My big pieces, I always run infused prismatic glyphs. So my chest, head, and legs are all triglyphs to give me max stat bonuses, and the rest I run Magicka. My weapon enchants, my jewelry traits will vary depending on the sets I'm in. So right now, because I am in Hercines and that is a medium armor set, I'm running infused Magicka recovery since I don't have increases to my bonuses. I know some people prefer to run 3 arcane on Hercines. It's really just player preference. And to make sure I'm pumping out my heals, I mean, I'm always running a back bar shock enchant in any group that is stamina heavy, so you either want a charged or infused shock enchant on your lightning staff. And on your resto bar, you can run, typically what I see healers running is either powered, I personally prefer infused, and then you can run a weakening enchant or a berserker enchant on your front bar. Some people do run absorb magicka. I don't feel a need for that, but if you are struggling with sustain, it is something you can do on your front bar.
What Mundus stone do you use?
I use the Atronach in most content. In Cloud Rest, I run the Ritual.
What kind of food do you use?
I don't have any food on right now, but I typically run Double Bloody Mara, which is the Vamp food. With this update in Elsewhere, they changed how food scaling works. I don't, as a Breton, I don't need the recovery from Witch Mothers in the most content. So Double Bloody Mara gives me the most benefits to my max stats in terms of giving me max health and max med.
That makes sense.
Makes you quite tanky in content. I'm usually running around like 22k health.
Yeah, I'm using witch mothers because clockwork citrus fillet is expensive. I think I
Yeah.
have it.
Since you're high elf, I can see the value in running a recovery food.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like unless I'm in Ebon, I'm not going to necessarily need a recovery. Which that's a whole nother story of when healers are expected to run Ebon.
For your CP points, do you change that up between fights, or do you just like follow a standard
My
guide?
blue CP is almost always the same. My red CP will vary based on the trial. Green CPU can vary based on trial, but I always run 75 into Arcanist and 76 in Tenacity at a minimum. Especially on Warden, because they don't really do a lot of damage in their kit compared to like Templar, which has a lot of damaging skills as part of their kit in healing. I'm always running 100 into Blessed, 100 into Elfborn, and then you can spend the rest of the blue CP as you wish.
Apparently, I have some that I need to spend.
I know some people like to run 76 into Blessed and Elfborn instead of 100 because they don't see the use in bumping it all the way up to 25.
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand that, but it's also kind of like, where else are you going to put the CP?
Yeah. And for your attribute points, do you put them all into Magicka, or do you split it up
Yep.
with health?
I have everything in the Magicka.
Okay, Elk, how would you like to take us to Sorcerer?
So my bard setup is my healing springs, my combat prayer, orbs, version. This is the active option for sustain on a sword healer. After elsewhere, they remove the cooldown, so it's actually a lot easier to just pop it and then throw skills out without such a delay after it. There are still some disadvantages to using a channel and something that consumes your stamina in some situations. If you want to swap it out for something else, you need a dark magic skill to give the group prophecy, minor prophecy. You could use frags, or if in some specific content you could use encase. I mean, it's cheaper. You can also use it to, but typically I just stick with conversion because I need sustain as a dark elf. The last spot, which is double bard, is the matriarch. Bard ult, you can put absorption field, the healing negate here, but it's not really a burst heal, it's a heal over time, so it's not going to save your group too much if you need a defensive ultimate, in which case you probably just run barrier and pop that if you do need a panic button, and you also get magic recovery from passives. Front bar, since we have the matriarch again, has to be on both bars unfortunately, which really pick your flex spots based on fights. Which mostly we're just kind of throwing it on the tank so they can proc Alkosh to keep uptime on Shopcliff. And the next one's a flex spot. I put Blood Altar here usually. If I need a resist buff, which also doubles up as movement speed. Boom. it's nice if you're, say, kite healing somewhere, Asylum or Cloud Rest, any drain. And if you're not required to run any drain, then you could put something else here, but I typically always have it. Oh, is Warren, of course.
What kind of gear do you usually wear? Would it be different since you're a sorcerer?
Really? I mean, the Matriarch obviously doesn't scale off spell damage, but it doesn't really alter my gear choices too much. Like, I'll run and Worm or Auto IA if the other healer isn't running it. It really just depends on the organization of your group and what the other healer is available to you. You're typically not trying to spam a burst heal anyway, so you're not really concerned about not building for max magicka to get mileage out of it. So being a sorcerer, it doesn't really change my gear options too much.
Are you also using the Atronach Mundus?
I use Atromundus and recovery food since my race isn't optimal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Breton sustains very strong, and this character is a dark elf, so sustains very, very weak. So you need to stay on top of your heavies when you need to do a fully charged heavy, and keep dark conversion up, but with regards to being mindful about your stamina in relation to the content that you're doing.
What monster sets do you guys use?
I'm typically in Bogdan right now. I also have Sentinel, Earthcore, and Symphony available. I know some people also have Troll King for special scenarios, but I would say Bogdan is probably going to work in the majority of scenarios. If you're feeling pretty comfortable with your group and you don't feel like you need the extra heal off Bogdan, you can run Earthcore for the oh crap moments, which is also, it's quite a powerful purge right now since they
Those are the exact monster sets that I have available as well. I typically default to Bogdan. I try and make use of Sentinel, but my groups are never like totally one-sided stamina heavy at this point. Like, usually we have a fair mix, and sometimes it can proc in undesirable locations.
a little dumb.
I've wondered if the way that it lands, like whether the wings are open or closed or whatever, has any effect on how much healing it does.
Bogdan, no, that's just its T-posing. If its wings are open, that's literally it.
Now, I was reading somewhere that sometimes some healers might run Moakina, but I feel like that's probably if you need less healing in those groups.
I don't know anybody who's been running Kina. If anything, your healer would slot like Grothdar or Zon. If you were looking to do more damage,
For like One Piece bonuses, maybe like One Piece Chokethorn or something, like One Piece Magic Recovery. But I've never heard of anyone using the full set as a healer.
Yeah, maybe it was a One Piece thing.
yeah, I know, like Frostvault hard mode, because you can't proc your healer sets on the platform there. I usually just run either Symphony of Blades or 2 Healing Done pieces. But again, that's really, really content specific. By and large, I think Bogdan can get you through pretty much anything.
I guess it's my turn to talk about Templars now. I also use the Atronach Mundus Stone. I have my attribute points split between magic and health, It's primarily Magicka. I put 10 points in health just for a little bit more survivability. Since I'm typically wearing light armor, although I do follow the 5-1-1 split because I like the Undaunted metal passive. Once I find it, there you go. Which helps increase your stats for every type of armor. So what I normally do is either my chest or my head will be in heavy. And then my shoulders are normally the one that's in medium. And then everything else is in light because healer sets only drop in light. Right now I'm wearing Olarima and Infal, like she mentioned. I don't typically change my gear. I guess that makes me a bad teammate. Normally it's the other healer that's changing their clothes out. But I do have other pieces like Mending and SPC, which I don't wear anymore. Worm, I don't think I ever wore that, but I did farm it. Sanctuary used to be my main set. Eurovolts, haven't worn it yet. I think I'm missing one piece. And then I also have the Asylum Resto Staff, which I love. I know another popular one is, let me pull it up, is the Master Resto Staff. I don't find it to be as powerful, so I don't know why it's a popular staff to use. Asylum has a cost reduction on it when you cast a Healing Springs.
Not Springs, Combat Prayer.
Yes, do Combat Prayer first. Yeah, no, that's not right. I changed my freaking. There we go. Right.
You're gonna get the most benefit. Orbs are your most expensive heal, so you're gonna get the most benefit out of the Asylum Resto if you cast Combat Prayer and then 3 orbs in a row.
Normally casting Combat Prayer right before people go into a fight and then do the Healing Springs, but sometimes I'll do Combat Prayer and Breath of Life if I'm seeing too many people that are very low. I just find that the cost reduction, in addition to, my Mundus and my race, tends to be, I think it's powerful. I have almost limitless resources unless I die, and obviously don't have all of my resources back yet. I rarely have to heavy attack. I'll do it for, I think you get minor fracture.
I mean, you need to proc IA with. I mean, you don't have to do a full heavy to proc IA. You just have to do like the first 2, and it'll proc. You can tell by the purple glow that's around an enemy.
I have to figure out. I have to like rejuggle my stuff because I don't have 5 pace on either bar, so the heavy attacks, I don't get that additional damage by doing it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to re-juggle my stuff. But so I'm using Witch Mothers because I'd mentioned before Clockwork Citrus Light is expensive. I like the recovery. Maybe I don't need it as much and I could try Bloody Moor, but I don't remember what goes into that, so maybe that's expensive too. I'm typically wearing Bogdan as my monster set. I was doing Troll King before that for a while. And I do have Earthcore, and I do have the other sets that you mentioned, but I've never used them. It's always been either Bogdan or Troll King for me. Okay, so skills. Let's go into that. On my front, I don't typically change that my front, except for my ulti. And I did move some skills around, so I'm still getting used to where they are, but so do Breath of Life if you need a quick burst heal. Then I always do the combat prayer and healing springs that I had mentioned. Mutagen, typically just a quick catch up for people if they're not in danger of dying. Sometimes I'll even do like all 3 in a row. And now I have Purifying Light on my front instead of my back, so that way I can try to help people with more damage. That's what it does, it copies damage, I assume, from everyone, and not just me.
It's the whole group, but for a long time now, both morphs of this skill have been essentially bugged in raids. If you're doing enough DPS, which a trial group typically is, the explosion damage just doesn't occur. So in 4-man content, it might actually still explode, but in trial groups, it's fallen out of favor to run this skill.
There's always so much going on that I've never noticed whether that last bit is happening or not.
It's hard to keep up with the number of bugs in this game sometimes.
Yeah. And I know I mentioned this last time we were talking about this. I prefer on my Templar the other morph of that skill because Power of the Light grants minor fracture and breach, which is added penetration for your damage dealers, which allows them to spec their CP into more raw damage versus penetration point. And with the changes they made to it, the skill lasts for 6 seconds, but the debuff lasts for 9. So it really is quite. It's in a really good spot for healers to be running it this patch, and it does take some learning of stam management to get used to it, but I would definitely say it's very, very, very strong and almost essential to have somebody running that skill in a trial scenario.
And you don't tend to see too many stamina Templars, and even actually in this patch, I think for them there's been a
They're
measure
not running
to
it.
not use it at all, so it's even more dependent on Templar healers to provide the debuff.
And that's funny you mentioned Stamina Templars, because that's what I was doing too before I swapped the ignore. It was Stamplar. Oh well. On my front, sometimes I'm running the Warhorn, aggressive Warhorn, I believe is the one that I have. Yes. But I'll swap it out for like Reviving Barrier for the final fight in Hellra. Lately in my groups, we've been, during Skyfall, or Starfall, the healers have been taking turns casting it. Because normally by the time it comes around again, by the second time it comes around again, your ult has been built up so you can cast it. Just to help provide more protection during Starfall. On my back, I mean I moved Inner Light back there, which was, it made more sense than on my front because that's where my damage is. Normally, I have Blockade of Storms. I prefer shards. I mean, the downside of casting shards instead of orbs is you can only cast one at a time. And it actually be used, because I cast it again over here, it disappeared from where I initially cast it, but it goes where I want it to, which is why I like it. And it's useful, like if I'm tank healer.
Your aim is definitely improving.
Because I can get that to where he is instead of waiting for orbs to get that way. Let's see. So Blockade of Storms and Shards are typically the thing that I, and Solar Prison for my ult. Those are pretty much the 3 things that I always have on there. I don't know if people have noticed, but the bad guys also use the same skills. So if you're doing content like Dragon Star Arena, in round 7, the Daedra, one of the Daedra types uses the same skill. So usually for that one, either I just won't use it at all, and I'll let people know so that, like, if I'm healing, sometimes I also go in there with my mag blade, but I don't use that skill during round 7, and so I'll let people know that I'm not doing it, and they need, if they see it on the ground, they need to get out of it, because it turns out that is a really painful skill to get caught in the middle of. I have channeled focus if I need a little bit of protection while I'm casting other skills for people. And then extended ritual, sometimes, I mean, that does healing, but it also allows people to, like, purge negative effects from them. I like to swap actually, channeled focus is the one that I will swap out most for, like, let me go over here for efficient purge. The downside of that is I have to get close enough to people to cleanse them myself, but at least I don't have to rely on them being able to synergize, like, with extended ritual.
Purge has got a pretty decent radius of 18 meters.
Yeah,
So
it's better
you can
than
hit
extended
people
ritual.
from pretty far. Well, I wouldn't say it's better.
Well,
I
I
would
mean,
say it's
larger.
different. The benefit of Purge is that you can just use it. You bring extended ritual or ritual retribution to the table to have that additional synergy again for people to run Alkosh and Locestes. A lot of what healers do is oriented around the synergies you're bringing to the table, and in that group utility.
Let's see, what else do I swap out? Sometimes I use Eladrin, especially if I'm on the top healer for Helra. Normally one of the DPS has it, so I don't typically slot it. Let's see what else. If I want a different kind of DPS myself, I also I slot Radiant Depression. And I think those are, like, the main, probably the main skills that I will swap out. I have Inner Fire too on the rare occasion that I'm expected to also, like, taunt. Instead of, if we only have, I guess, if we only have one tank and they need somebody else to taunt stuff. But I don't like it because I find it scary to be attacked and only be wearing light armor. But that's just me. For racial skills, well, racial passives, obviously I have all of them. Because I'm also doing light, medium, heavy, I will have roll dodge, well, athletics in the medium passives, and dexterity for the roll dodge and the weapon crit. And then in heavy armor, I have constitution for health recovery and more max health for Juggernaut, and then more resistance and resolve. Otherwise, like for Destro Staff and Restro Staff, you're going to want all of the passives. And then because I use these skills, I also have all these passives into my classes. The add-ons that I like to use most as a healer specifically, we have Purge Tracker, which will show up over here on the left, or no, the right side of my screen. It only shows up when I'm somewhere that has effects that can be purged. So any dungeons, if you go into what is Asylum, or if you go into a mall, it will display on your screen, and you know, whoever's orange on that little roster over here is somebody has an effect that needs to be purged, and so I'll try to get close to the group, or if I know where they are, I'll get close to them and cast efficient purge to clean them. I also like action duration reminder because, let's see, It tells me right here on that skill, like how long I have until I need to cast it again. I have Merlin's Res Helper. If somebody's dead, I can tell where they are instead of just being a random pile of ash. That's probably
I'm glad that's over
not
with.
even them. Svendar, which, let's see.
I'm not a guard factotum, you know.
There you go. It's not really showing. Svendar will show me on the enemy or even the ally, like what buffs or debuffs they have on them. And then obviously, because I do a lot of trials, I have Raid Notifier now. I didn't have it for a long time, so I had to learn the various cues, the visual cues of different attacks, but I find it a lot more helpful now that I have Raid Notifier. I can anticipate stuff ahead of time instead of just seeing it right before it happens. Oops, wrong one. I think I do. We talked about enchantments earlier. I might as well mention mine. I do max magic on most of them, but one of them I did have max health just for a little extra boost, and then some recovery on my jewelry. Yeah, Cece, you had mentioned you could talk a little bit about necro healing now.
Oh yeah, sure. So I got my necro healer to 50. I'm still getting her through Undaunted and leveling her orbs. But essentially everything is going to be pretty much the same. Atronach Mundus. Your sets are going to be the same. Enchants most likely the same. You definitely want to be running Magicka Recovery glyphs on your jewelry for that. What makes necro healers quite powerful is they bring 2 class synergies plus the orb synergy to the table. So a tank is going to have a lot of options for them to be able to keep that up. So the synergies that Necros have is they have Bone, which you can place wherever. Agony Totem, which that synergy grants AoE minor vulnerability, so it's quite strong in Trash Pack. And then, of course, they have orbs from the Undaunted skill line and any other skill from the Undaunted line that they're running will, of course, have a synergy. What I'm running on my Necro Healer right now is Combat Prayer, Illustrious. I have Inner Light, but that's going to be a flex spot for if I need Purge or Ward Ally or a different skill. And then I have Orbs in my 4 slot, and then I have Spirit Guardian, which is a morph of the Mender that you get, and you need to keep that active to get. There's a passive, I can't remember which skill line it is, but when your Spirit Mender is up, you have an added 200 recovery. So it's sort of similar to how you slot the Netch for recovery, you slot the Mender for recovery. And then I would have Barrier on your front bar, because with the support passives, it's added recovery, and Necro is kind of lacking overall in recovery stats, and ways to get Magicka back. And then my back bar, for right now, it's Boneyard, Wall, Ellie Drain or Altar, Agony Totem, and I have Necrotic Potency on there for the ultimate generation off Trash Packs, but I would view that as a flex. And that's a morph of Bitter Harvest. And then you have Warhorn. So they kind of play pretty similar to Warden or Templar in terms of you're kind of laying down your back bar synergies and wall and debuffs and then switching to your front. But I'm really quite enjoying them. I think because of the number of synergies they bring to the table, they are probably pulling ahead of the Warden in that department, but Warden ultimately has more utility due to the minor toughness passive. There's nothing that you as a Necro Healer will be bringing to a raid in terms of debuffs that you will not be getting from a Necro DPS because their Colossus ultimate is why you really want to bring them because of the major vulnerability. Which you can run that on a healer, and I know I have it leveled. I know other healers who do run it. But you're not going to not have that if you have a Necro DPS in the group. Now, you will be missing the synergies, but again, that's not entirely necessary if your group is structured the right way. And I'm talking from a trial healing perspective, of course, where you have 2 of each support.
Okay. What alts do you use?
For the Necro,
Yeah. Do you use any
um,
class ones or no?
I have the barrier on my front bar, but I can swap that out with the Flesh Colossus. I'm running a Glacial Colossus on my Necro, so that's something you want to be able to switch out, and then you can do Warhorn on your back bar.
Okay. That's kind of interesting. I don't know. I haven't made a Necro yet, but I don't know either what I want to do with it. I don't really feel like I want another healer, so maybe I'll DPS with it or something.
I have 1 healer of each class that I'm working on, so just never know.
Yeah, true. Alright. I guess that's probably all. We kind of blew through this today, faster than I was expecting to. So I hope everyone learned some interesting stuff about different class types and how they're viable for even the same roles. And because obviously I don't know anything about Necro, and I did learn a few things today otherwise, but tune in next month. I don't know what class we're gonna do, but I'm sure it'll be useful and fun. People have been wanting to do like a thief farm, so who knows, I might do something like that one day. Anyway, take care and have a good day. Bye.